Live. Oh, Anthony and I are just coming off of one of our client retreats. We did a somatic immersion healing retreat that we just finished up on Saturday, and we're still getting clients coming back saying how amazing they feel, and it was just so phenomenal. We brought a good colleague and friend of ours in to do the event with us, who does sound healing, and she's shamanic. Shamanic? Why is that word not flowing? She's a shaman.
There you go.
Why is the word not working for me right now? But she uses healing techniques that she's learned through many years of healing herself as well as healing with other clients and all over the world. She's been in Peru and Hawaii and Brazil learning healing techniques, and she's phenomenal. So she was doing some of the work with us as well, but it was phenomenal. So Anthony and I are still kind of resonating in that amazing vibration. But today, what we're going to be talking about is the piece of this hormone series that we've been doing here every Monday. And today we want to talk about thyroid. So we have, I mean, Anthony, would you say like 90%, if it's that high? Is it?
Yeah, I think it's that high. But
Yeah.
what's really
Of our
interesting,
clients?
yeah, what's really interesting is not that you don't know this, but just for everybody else out there, a very high percentage of our clients are female, but I have yet to see a thyroid issue with a male, with a
Yeah.
man.
We I mean, I think we had one that was Hashimoto's at one point years ago, but it's not that frequent, not that
Yeah,
common.
right.
But like 90% of our clients, there's a thyroid component. There's a thyroid issue, whether it's Hashimoto's fully diagnosed or whether it's, hypothyroid. We have hyperthyroid. I mean, one of our favorite stories to tell, we actually start our book with, was Megan. She was told 12 hours after she started working with us, she got a call from her endocrinologist saying that she had hyperthyroid issues that were so bad that if she didn't have her thyroid removed immediately, she would suffer and die. And I'm quoting. And she, of course, panicked and called us and said, "Oh my God, what do I do?" And so, I talked her through it and said, "Megan, I can't tell you what to do here. But what I can tell you is once you lose your thyroid, once the thyroid's been removed, it doesn't grow back. It's not coming back. You have to take medication for the rest of your life, and your body has to learn how to circumvent a major piece of how your body operates." So she chose to take some time and work with us and see what she could do with a natural healing approach. And within 12 weeks, she started feeling so much better. Her labs were getting better that she decided she wanted to go all in and told her doctor to cancel the surgery, not even push it off, but cancel it. And after a year of working with us, she went back to the same endocrinologist. She had a whole set of labs run with him, and he didn't get back to her, though she got her results back. So she sent her results to Anthony. Anthony talked her through them and explained what they all meant. And at that point, her numbers were so good that it reflected no disease with the thyroid, no issues with the thyroid. Her inflammatory response was so much lower that her thyroid had come back from the damage that was being done by Graves' disease. And Graves' disease essentially is the hyper version of thyroid autoimmune. So 2 weeks later, her doctor contacted her and said, "I'm sorry it took me so long. I thought that the labs screwed up and sent the wrong labs to you." So do you want to read the email? I think you have it right in front of you.
Yeah, well,
She sent you?
you saw me doing that, so
Yeah.
it's interesting. This is the opening, like literally right after the forward, chapter 1. The opening of our book is exactly this story. I gotta switch my glasses.
Yeah, he's gonna get the old man glasses out. Yeah, there you go.
There we go. How you like that, huh?
I love it. You're
All right. So this is the email from Megan.
Yeah,
Rotary.
back to you. So after she saw her
Yep.
doctor.
Yep. So it says, "Hi, Anthony. I wanted to share with you because no one will appreciate it as much. My endocrinologist finally called me. Just talked to him for 20 minutes, way longer than any other doctor gives. And he could not stop telling me he can't believe it. He has to know what pill I am taking or who's giving me something. I kept saying nothing. I promise. It's been all food and treating myself kind. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
Then she says it went back and forth. They went back and forth, and he wouldn't believe her. Then he said that she needs to write a book because people need to know there's another way. That proves how many sheltered doctors there are, and that there's another way of healing. But didn't he also say that
She should write a
it's,
book.
yeah, so that that's right, that she needs to write a book because people need to know there's another way to heal.
So we started our book with her. But, you know, the shame of the whole story is he kept saying, you know, this was such a miracle that she needed to write a book about herself to show people there was another way to heal. And this is an endocrinologist. These are people who are supposed to be experts in the endocrine system, in hormones, in thyroid, and how they function. And what she's getting, which is we hear from clients all the time, which I got as well, because I had Hashimoto's. Had is the key word there. I had Hashimoto's and celiac disease, which are both autoimmune conditions, one basically of the gut and the other one of the thyroid. And I had seen endocrinologists and I had seen doctors and I had had hormones run, and they never said anything to me about how I could shift my lifestyle or my diet or to impact my body in a way that it could heal itself. And Megan came across the same thing. And this is a guy who was telling her she was going to suffer and die if she didn't remove a major gland from her body. That, I mean, the thyroid, Anthony, I mean, obviously you can take over the science part of this, but the thyroid basically is involved with pretty much every system in the body, correct?
Yeah, well, one of its hormones that it creates is T3, and free T3, which total T3 converts into, it's every cell in the body uses it. So let's go with that. Yeah. And you know, for energy production, every cell in the body. So we also see people with overactive, underactive thyroids. We also occasionally and unfortunately see people with no thyroids, because the thyroid's the only gland in the body that uses iodine. So how the medical community kills it off is they give that person radioactive iodine, and the thyroid takes it up and it just kills it off.
We have a client, Anissa, who had half her thyroid removed because there was a nodule and there was a cancer scare. So they removed half of her thyroid. And she has been able to get off all of her medication that she was told she'd be on for the rest of her life with half a thyroid, working on her system, finding ways to help her emotional state be more balanced. So she's not in fight or flight all the time. And we worked on the nutritional components as well to make sure that she was getting the nutrients that she needed to help support her body with only half a thyroid. And if you want to watch her story, it's on our website. So it's Anissa. And she talks about that too. And so what we want you to understand is that everything in the body is necessary. Though the body might be able to live without something, they're all necessary components, right? And we start taking things out without really understanding how the body works. And a lot of the conventional, traditional medical system, a lot of the functional medicine doctors don't fully appreciate how the body works and how to heal the system, not just manage the disease, right? Because if you take out a component, you take out the body, or you force it onto hormones like, you know, T3 or T4, you put it on thyroid hormones, you put it on thyroid medications, the body then has to circumvent what's going on, and it gets the wrong message. And then later down the road, you either need more medication, you need some other issue, you have some other side effect. It starts causing hair loss. It starts causing hair growth, fatigue, weight gain. There's a whole bunch of other things that happen. What was the last one?
Weight loss as well.
Yeah,
people
we'll see it go the other way. Because
their metabolism is just like, because they're producing so much thyroid hormone. And to piggyback off what you said before, it still blows my mind. Like, if you think about autoimmune, what actually it is, it's your own immune system killing yourself. That's what's how, you know, let me, that sounds a little crazy, but it's killing cells. Let's start there, which, you know, cells essentially, a bunch of cells put together are tissues, a bunch of tissues put together become organs or glands, and a bunch of organs or glands put together become systems, and then we're a being of various systems. So there's just the thought of what's happening is like, why in the world would my own immune system start attacking and killing cells. Now we can measure this stuff. If you don't know this already, there are several. Last time I looked, it was about 26 or so labs that look at different autoimmune diseases, but there's well over 100 autoimmune diseases. So there's not necessarily a test for every one, but just the thought of it, like if you feel you have no purpose, right? Well, your immune system's responding, and you have no purpose, right? So it's gonna respond and start killing off cells that don't have purpose. We talk to people, they feel they won't be alive in a few years just because of the trajectory they're on. Well, now they're sending a signal to a message to their immune system. I no longer want to live or believe I'm going to live. So, the immune system's reacting in kind. But it still blows my mind after all these years that our own immune systems can do things like this.
Yeah, I mean, the immune system's job is to help protect and to help you heal. That's its job. That's it. That's all it does. And if it's spending all of its energy trying to attack something that it doesn't recognize as part of self, then you're going to start having problems. And for me, I started with celiac disease, and a lot of my issues were identity related. If we go to the spiritual and kind of the energetic component, I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't feel like I fit in my family. I felt like I was the odd man out. I was the black sheep, all of the stories, right? And I was married to somebody who the relationship wasn't working, but I didn't want it to be a failure. So I kept pushing on and trying to fix all the things. And so I was really in an identity crisis. And a lot of people with identity crisis issues, where they're really in conflict with their own self, end up as digestive related issues, autoimmune disease or not. Then we've got a whole litany of people where this is where thyroid comes in. When we feel like we can't speak our truth, we don't feel like we're communicating effectively, we don't feel like we're being seen and heard, a lot of issues start showing up in the throat. So this is where the thyroid sits right here in the middle of the throat. So you start to see issues with people energetically, emotionally, physically, when they feel that they aren't being seen or heard, or they can't communicate effectively the truth of who they really are. So celiac disease and Hashimoto's are two of the most common autoimmune conditions, thyroid issues being the most popular. But we start to see issues across the board. But this affects our ability to balance our hormones, our ability to have a good flow, our ability to have good intimate relationships. This has ability to affect fertility. Right? So, but then it has all of these other impacts on how we move through and into menopause, how we go through before menopause, how we're all handling all of that. But the thyroid is a major component to all of these things. So if you don't feel like you're able to be seen and heard, and you are not speaking effectively your truth, and you are holding back, there's a lot of things that will get stuck energetically and physically in this area of your system. And it starts causing damage because the immune system doesn't understand how to protect or help you heal when you are not congruent with who it is that you really are. So you're in an internal conflict. So there's pieces of you, cells and tissues, the body doesn't recognize as part of self. It doesn't know how to protect or help heal on something it doesn't think is part of self, gets confused, and it starts attacking those pieces. So we're seeing an uptick of autoimmune conditions threefold just in the last 10 years. And people are having more and more and more issues. Now, part of it is, I think, because we're looking for autoimmune finally in a way we haven't looked before. But the traditional medical community, their only real answers are going to be diagnose and treat to manage or shove down the disease as best as possible with medication. When you work with people who are more into the healing aspects, who work with the body rather than against the body, they're going to look at things like energetically, what is the reason for this particular condition or symptom? What can we do to help support your body nutritionally so your body has the resources to be able to help you heal, not just suppress a symptom? What is it that your body is lacking, or what is it to have an overabundance of that we need to help balance so that your body can do what it was already designed to do? So when Anthony and I work with our clients, we look at you as a whole person, a 360-degree approach, where we look at Anthony will go through all of the lab components and really look at what your doctors have been running, and if you really should be running other labs to understand the message and the conversation the body's trying to have with you. I mean, Anthony, what do you typically see? Doctors are only running at best TSH and T4?
Yeah, I mean, that would even be impressive, but it's TSH, and the irony, now don't misunderstand, because TSH is a very important thyroid marker, but TSH, if you didn't know, stands for thyroid stimulating hormone. It's not even produced by the thyroid, it's produced by the pituitary gland, but it's a signal that the pituitary gland gives the thyroid to make thyroid hormone. So there are several other markers that, I mean, there's 10 total markers, including antibodies, if someone wants to do a full panel on thyroid. And I most likely see 1 and occasionally 2, 3, and rarely do I see more than that. But, you know, the more information, to me, it makes sense. The more information I have on something, the better understanding I can have. Is it a pituitary issue? Is it a production issue? Is it a conversion issue? Is it a combination of issues?
And with the fact that the thyroid hormones are being converted in the liver, it becomes an incredibly important part of the storyline too, because if your liver is not optimal, then you can't do the conversion.
Well, liver, kidneys, and peripheral tissues, but mostly in the liver and kidneys. You're right. You know, so in order for total T3 and T4 to convert into their free versions, we need proper functioning liver and kidneys. So let's look at those markers too, right?
Are involved. So when we're just looking at one marker that's not even produced by the thyroid, it's produced in a way to tell the thyroid what it needs, and it's over communicating or under communicating. There's so many more pieces to this.
Yeah,
right?
And there's nutrients. You got to provide the raw materials so the, glands can do their jobs.
And there are 5 pieces of raw material. I mean, there are specific nutrients, but there are 5 that really are the most important. And most doctors aren't talking to you about that either, because frankly, doctors are not trained. So it's actually out of the scope of practice of an MD or a DO. It's out of their scope of practice to advise you on nutrients or nutrition, and it's out of their scope of practice to advise you on workout schedules or working out. So it's interesting because it's out of our scope of practice to diagnose and to medicate. So interesting, right? So the things that aren't really going to help you heal, the diagnosis and the medication, they're potentially going to give you some insight, but it's just a name for things, or the things we're not allowed to do because it's out of our scope of practice. But the things that are out of the scope of practice of your medical professionals, the traditional, conventional medical professionals, are the things that actually help you heal. Because medication isn't going to help you heal. It's going to help manage the disease. So we wanted to be super clear, because many of you have been told that once you're on medication for thyroid, you have to be on it for the rest of your life. And we are not telling you to stop taking your medication. You absolutely should have this conversation with your prescribing doctor. So let's be super clear here what we're saying.
And the exception is if you don't have a thyroid, then you have to be on medication the rest of your life until they come up with a bionic thyroid, which is probably in the works.
Yeah.
But until, that's a thing. People with no thyroid, yes, need to be on medication.
But what we see with our clients time after time after time is that they are weaning from their medications and they are teaching their bodies how to support their systems appropriately. So the damage that's being done can be healed and their systems can work and function the way that they were designed to. So if your doctor is telling you you can never get off this medication unless you don't have a thyroid, you can never get off this medication, you need to find another practitioner. Right? Megan's doctor was so shocked. He thought she was a 1 in a billion person miracle level. And what we're saying is that she's not a miracle. Her body is a miracle. But what the results that she saw weren't a miracle. We get to see them all the time with our clients. So if you're working with a practitioner who's never seen healing, if you're working with a practitioner who's supposed to be an expert in something, but doesn't know how the healing process can happen for you, they've never seen it, you need to find another practitioner. You need to find another solution. You need to find another process. Because the thyroid, to us, is one of the easier ones to move around and to heal from. So I want you to understand the difference between healing and managing symptoms or disease. Very, very different approach. So Anthony, other than that, with the thyroid, what is it that you really think people need to understand a little bit better about thyroid function?
Other than what we talked about, like the physiology with the pituitary and the thyroid and the liver and kidneys, I mean, you hit upon it, but there's also a huge emotional component. So if you think about where the thyroid exists, it's on your voice box essentially. So expressing yourself to your satisfaction, speaking your truth, really, really, really important. And I don't have research on this, but earlier in this conversation, I said that males typically have very low thyroid issues, and that could be a really major piece to it because maybe they're better at expressing themselves. Maybe they're better at speaking their truth. I know you, being obviously a woman, and the day and age you grew up, essentially women were told to be quiet and don't talk about their feelings and stay in the kitchen and make cookies. So, I mean, maybe you want to speak more to that, but that's the only other contribution.
Well, I mean, I grew up in a household, and a lot of our clients have the similar experience where it was better to be a boy. And though my dad's family actually would say that directly, my mother's family was much more of that matriarchal. They were like much more on the women empowerment side. So it was very interesting. I'm coming from my father's side of the family where boys are better, and my mother's side of the family, there's many more women, and the people that were in charge are much more of or women. So it was an interesting dynamic where I was getting kind of two stories all the time. But in my immediate household, I knew it was safer to squash my feelings, hide my emotions. My father loved it when you could suck it up and walk it off, right? One of my very first memories of my dad is when I was 4, I was in the yard with him learning how to catch. And he had a softball, and he had his adult glove that he played softball with actually after work. And he wanted to help me. And the thing was like bigger than my head. But so he tossed me the softball. It hits this giant adult sized glove and hits me in the face. It slits my lip open. I'm bleeding all over the place. And my dad just scoops me up and runs into the kitchen with me. And my mother's making like a roast for dinner or something. And she looks up as her firstborn is now bleeding from the face. And she's all upset. What happened? What happened? And I'm still like reeling from being smacked in the face with a ball. And I see my father, and he's beaming from ear to ear. He's so proud. And he looks at my mother. He goes, "She's not crying." And he was so proud and so excited. And I got a message really early on in my developmental years of what is appropriate behavior in my immediate family, right? And it was not crying. It was not showing emotion. It was sucking it up and walking it off and being strong. And so my sister, only 2.5 years behind me, got that similar message as well. And we were growing up in this age, the 70s and 80s, where it was kind of like, boys were better. And there's just this very interesting dynamic. And so I knew that I was paid more attention to by my father when I had a story I could tell about getting hurt and walking it off, or how I was better because I wasn't showing emotion, or how I can compartmentalize the situation. And I used to celebrate that part of myself. But what was happening internally for me is I wasn't able to dissolve the emotional response my body was happening. And that emotional response has to go somewhere. So for those of you who think you're squashing it and shoving it to the side, it's just festering somewhere in the darkness. It doesn't mean it's gone. So for me, thyroid disorder wasn't a shock because I learned how to squash the pieces, but I didn't learn how to process emotion. I didn't learn how to manage an emotion. And so there's a difference between you're in a situation where you kind of govern the response long enough to get through the situation, and then you process it later. You manage it, you dissolve it. But if you never complete that cycle, that trauma cycle that you're in, that emotional cycle that you're in, it has to go somewhere. And it will show up as thyroid disorder. It will show up as disease. It will show up as headaches and migraines. It will show up as digestive disorder. It will show up as sleeplessness, as fatigue, as unexplained pains in your shoulder or your neck or your hip, skin issues, hyperreactive responses. So Our symptoms are just a message of something else that's going on. And the thyroid is one of the most easy to distort pieces of who we are, because it's a very, it's the word I'm looking for. It's a sensitive part of the body that has something to do with every single cell. So when you look at one of the most sensitive pieces of the body that has something to do with everything that happens within our systems, you really want to pay more attention to how your emotional responses, how you process emotion, how you process your mental thoughts through something, and you look at your physical response. They're all connected. And the thyroid is a huge piece of that. So those of you who are running around with any level of thyroid or hormone imbalance issues, adrenal dysfunction is right up there with thyroid. You really want to start to investigate who you are as a whole being. Do I speak my truth? Do I feel comfortable speaking my truth? Do I feel that I am safe to express who I really am, emotionally, mentally, and physically? And if the answer is no, or maybe, or kinda, you may be on a path in a way that you are doing damage to your system. So one of the things that Anthony and I literally were having a conversation about this morning, again, we just came off of this amazing 4-day somatic immersion healing retreat with our clients, and they were at our house, and
Nourishing too.
It was very nourishing. Anthony handled all of the food for everybody while we were here. They got to meet our dogs, so you can hear snoring in the background on Anthony's side. They got to really experience healing with other women who are also on this healing path in a whole different way and in person. And they were talking about their journeys through working with us. And they just, the accolades and the amazing things that they were saying about their journeys. But one of the things I was looking at, because every Friday our clients go in and do this big celebration event. And I was looking at what everybody was celebrating. And most of the things that they were celebrating, no matter why they approached us or started working with us in the first place, and a lot of it has to do with thyroid and other symptoms. But one of the things that is over and over and over that we see is the feeling balanced, feeling free, feeling emotionally stable, feeling they have better ability to express who they are to their spouses and their loved ones. They feel more free, and they feel more vibrant and inspired and less overwhelmed. Like it came back to basically the same things over and over, that they felt more in control, they could govern their lives, and they felt more free and peaceful. So what we decided to do, and this is an experiment that we are doing for just March, is we're willing to take on 5 people who want to start experiencing those pieces right away. And I created a 50-day process that our clients already go through, but we created just this 50-day process for people to go through, and just 5 people in the same group going through it at the same time. So if you want to feel more peace, and you want to feel more vitality, and you want to feel more vibrance, and you want to feel more inspiration, and you want to feel less overwhelmed and frustrated, and you want to feel less burnout, I know you guys know what I'm talking about, where you're just like, with everything, like I'm done, I'm finished, I don't want to do this anymore. But you have so much more to give. You've got a mission, and you really know you've got so much more purpose than what you're feeling right now. And a lot of people are feeling this crunch right now. We're hearing that from a lot of people. So if you're interested in being one of those 5 people, I created a special program, 50 days. So 50 days to feeling peace and joy and inspiration again, so you can get back to the things you were called to. If you're interested in that, you can email our assistant, Anthony, what is it, Grace at nourish123.com is her email?
Correct.
You want to put that in the chat. So just shoot an email.
I don't know if I can put stuff in the chat.
I got it. Grace at Nourish. Oops.
Oh,
So
yeah,
just
I
got it.
Okay.
Shoot an email over to her. She'll bounce back and tell you what it looks like, and just make sure it's the right fit for you. And we'll set up a time for us to chat. Because again, 5 people, we're doing this for March. It starts literally next week. If you're interested, it's a very specific program that we created just so you can laser focus in on getting rid of that burnout, overwhelmed, frustrated feeling, so that you can get that vibrancy, that healing, that moving through and completing the trauma cycles that are keeping you stuck and holding those symptoms in. So if you want more details on it, let me know. I'm going to send an email out to our list, and that's it. And once those 5 spots are filled, we're shutting down the program. We're shutting it down. We're closing that out because we are right now putting together a whole new process that's even more effective and more amazing because we're learning constantly from our clients and what they want and what gets them there faster. And we've added some new tools on in this last year that are getting people results even more quickly. So we're adding those components in. So 50 days. 50 days. It's 7 weeks. Can you imagine how much could happen in just 7 weeks? I mean, basically, you'd get it through the spring, once you were in the summer, and you were back in control and getting what it is that you need. So shoot an email over to grace@nourish123.com, and she will send you back some information on where to get started and if it's really a good fit. Because if it's not the right fit, not the right 5 people, then maybe there's something that's more effective for you, but we're doing this right now. And then again, we may not do it again, but we're just laser focusing on anxiety and overwhelm and frustration and burnout right now. All right, Anthony, anything else that we need to hit today?
Nope.
Okay. All right, you guys have a good rest of your Monday, and we will see you next week. We're going to be talking more about sex hormones, and we're going to be breaking it into 2 components because there's so much to the sex hormones. We're going to have part 1 next week and then part 2 of that the following week.
Cool.
Right, you guys have a good rest of your day.